Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Triangles Meditation Group. Today is October 18th, 2021. And as we've been doing of late, let's begin by coming together in a brief moment of silence, followed by the sounding of the Noontime Recollection. We know, O Lord of life and love, about the need. Touch our hearts anew with love, that we too may love and give. We know that our work together in triangles is really embodied in that recollection, for we do come together to aid the world teacher, the Christ, in the work that he's preparing for in cooperation with the spiritual hierarchy of letting loose the forces of light and love so that we can give more fully of ourselves to the extent that we align with that intention. And so today we're working in an important point in the annual cycle, as all the full moons are. This is the point of preparation for the Libra full moon, which occurs on Wednesday. And the Lucis Trust will be having its New York meeting tomorrow night at 6:30. And on Wednesday, closer to the exact time of the full moon, the Geneva and London offices will likewise have their meetings. So we hope you can join in these events, because the more people that work together, just like in the work of triangles, the more fully can we aid the forces of light in a challenging task, confronting them at this time. So we work together each week to strengthen the planetary network of triangles by coming together and participating in a meditative visualization. We also provide this platform to introduce this work to people who are new to it and to aid them in the forming of triangles. So if you have a willingness to find out more about this work, you can go to our website, triangles.org, and find out there. You can sign up for a bulletin board wherein you can meet other people throughout the world who are hoping to form triangles, or you can put your name in the chat box here, and hopefully 2 other members of the webinar will agree to form a triangle with you. It's a daily practice, this work of triangles. Each day we link together with our 2 triangles partners, or our multiple triangles partners, depending if we have multiple triangles. And we visualize a triangle of lighted energy connecting the 3 of us. And then we draw upon the central point or synthesizing point of that triangle, which is the world teacher, the Christ. And we connect with all other lighted triangles throughout the world, stimulating the love energy in the planet. And then we finalize the work by sounding the great invocation, visualizing ourselves doing so in alignment with all our group brothers and sisters throughout the world, releasing the potent energies of the invocation so that light, love, and power can help to restore the plan on our planet. For that's the process that's really being undertaken at this time, this restoration of the plan. And so this work in triangles need only take a few minutes each day, and it can therefore be fit into even the busiest of schedules. So again, we hope that you will agree to join with us and partake in this daily practice of distributing light and love. So as we usually have each week, following the meditation, we have a presentation by one of our Triangles co-workers. And today we are looking forward to hearing from Michelle Pineda. And she's been a student of the Ageless Wisdom for over 30 years, with interests in many different fields within the Ageless Wisdom, such as theosophy, anthroposophy, Rosicrucianism, and also the teachings of Alice Bailey. Her professional background includes 40 years of a specialty in nonprofit and governmental accounting, finance, and operational processes. So her presentation today will be entitled Impacts of First Ray Forces and Global Events. So we really look forward to hearing from you later, Michelle. So as we always do, let's begin with a brief visualization. Let's come together and visualize the planet as a sphere of lighted energy. And within that sphere, visualize a triangle of the three primary planetary centers. Shambhala, the planetary head center, the spiritual hierarchy, the planetary heart, and humanity, the planetary throat center. Visualize the circulation of these 3 points of light flowing in all directions around the triangle, from point to point, merging and blending the 3 points, filling the triangle with light. Now superimposed upon that triangle, visualize a 5-pointed star, the star of the world teacher, linking east and west, past and future, radiating the energy of love wisdom. At each point of the star, the sphere of his activity, stands an outpost of his consciousness, the 5 planetary centers. Visualize the energies radiating forth from the center of the star through the 5 points. London, Darjeeling, New York, Geneva, Tokyo. Visualize these outpouring energies enlivening small groups gathering everywhere, aiding them to focus and direct the energies into the consciousness of all humanity, solving its problems, creating right human relations, restoring peace on earth. Let's project a rainbow bridge of energy towards the hierarchy and sound together the invocation of light. Radiance we are and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light, we work and turn the darkness into day. Oh. So each month as we approach the full moon, we have the opportunity to work with its particular energies. For these energies pour through the network of triangles. And so while some of us might not have an interest in working specifically with any of the particular energies of the signs, it is part of our a suggested practice that the Tibetan brings forward, working with some of the key thought forms, trying to build these thought forms into human consciousness. And as triangles workers, thereby transmitting them through the wonderful vehicle of the planetary network. So it's an interesting practice to undertake of connecting with the energies of any particular sign. And these energies are, of course, many and varied and depend upon our level of consciousness, which aspects of the sign they might reveal. You know, people who are not placing themselves on the path react to these energies in one way, and those who are reversing the wheel, we might say, are going to be partaking of a higher correspondence to those energies. And the Tibetan makes the interesting statement in relationship to Libra that prior to that stepping of one's feet upon the path, the life goes forward without too much disturbance, generally speaking. Certainly there are karmic crashes once in a while, but not to the extent that happens as one begins to step onto the long process of reversing that wheel, or you might view it as swimming upstream while many others are floating downstream quite more comfortably in their personality shells. But the seeker after truth reverses that process, and that's when the challenges come into play. And the particular period of time in which this begins is said to be in Libra, when one passes through an incarnation wherein the energies of Libra are strong through the sun or the rising sign, or perhaps any other strong configuration of those energies. Because then the established currents, as I mentioned, begin to sway and no longer satisfy. And so one way in which this manifests for the majority of people going through this experience is through the life presenting them with powerful decisions that are not easily undertaken. And I'm sure all of us here have had those periods in our lives when we were confronted with a choice and we were not sure which way to go. So it's like a fork in the road. Sometimes those forks, as we progress, get bigger, more difficult, need for greater discrimination because of the increasing subtlety of the choices as one moves forward on the path. So humanity too, as a whole, is conditioned very much by this energy of Libra, as is always the case, we're told, when passing between the ages. And so humanity is in scales, as we're told. And so many people are being confronted with this, perhaps their first taste of this Libran experience of choice and decision and how to choose out of the many conflicting forces and the much distortion that's going on in our world. And how do we see the situation? It differs for each one of us, and we have to make those choices for ourselves. And so that's probably about enough said. We can all experience these things in our daily lives, and we can work particularly powerfully with those energies now in this sign, drawing upon the potency of Libra as we stand within the center point, because that's one of the key qualities of Libra. And I thought I'd just close this brief reflection with a visualization, not that we're going to do it, but just to say that when I read this visualization, I thought it was really related to the time in which we're living and to Libra in particular, because Libra is also known as the hub of the wheel. So it has a very potent connection standing at the center of all the signs. In a sense, it's somewhat akin to Pisces, which takes from all the signs. Libra stands as a synthetic point, synthesizing all the signs and then reaching out through its majesty to a higher point of consciousness. We as humanity might call that point the synthetic aspect of the Shambhala force, powerful first ray energy, which Michelle will be speaking about. So the Tibetan advises his disciple to stand within the center of that wheel. Perhaps we could visualize it as a diamond, a seven-faceted diamond, and as invoking the Christ who's standing in that central point of the spiritual hierarchy, and then visualizing seven spokes of the seven colors of the rays, the seven sacred planets, the seven ashramic groups, each along one of the ray lines, radiating forth their energies, which then are tapped by the new group of world servers and distributed in a ripple-like effect down into all the triangles workers and all spiritual workers. So we're all partaking of certain colors, certain textures, but at this time of this synthetic full moon, we're really working with the energy of the Christ pouring out, overshadowed by the higher centers on our planet and beyond. So it's a great, great opportunity to work together at this time. So we'll now move into our meditation. Let's come together as a group and stand upon the mental plane, the center of the even arm cross of discipleship, bridging towards the highest center of spiritual will, the center Shambhala. And we sound together the affirmation of will. In the center of the will of God, I stand. Naught shall deflect my will from his. I implement that will by love. I turn towards the field of service. I, the triangle divine, work out that will within the square and serve my fellow men. Visualization, using the creative imagination, link with two other points of light to create a triangle of light. Visualize the triangle in which you are working as an essential part of the radiant worldwide triangles network. Hold the consciousness immersed within the light of the group's soul, the heart of love which underlies and infuses the network. Lift the consciousness now to the world teacher who stands as the heart of love at the center of the spiritual hierarchy and also at the heart of each triangle. Visualize the energies of love, light, and goodwill circulating in and around the triangle's network. Visualize these energies unifying and eliminating all divisions within humanity, healing and transforming human consciousness, and establishing right human relationships. Let's project a line of lighted energy towards the spiritual hierarchy and sound together the mantra of unification. The sons of men are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love that underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all men love. Visualize the whole planet alight with triangles. See new triangles being formed everywhere. So close by sounding the great invocation, silently or aloud. And as we repeat each stanza, let's visualize the network acting as a link between the world of spiritual realities and humanity, as a channel through which light and love and divine purpose may flow into human consciousness. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you, everyone. Now I'd like to welcome Michelle, if you could share your screen.
Hello, Kathy. Can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Hold on and I will pull up my PowerPoint. Bear with me.
Okay.
So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. What I would like to talk about is the correlations and patterns and similarities of events and the similarity of events between two periods of time, and that being the period of 1918 and 1945 and today. And I like to focus on the first ray forces as they impacted those events during those time periods. Certainly other forces were at work during this time, but for this presentation, I'm going to focus on the first ray aspects and impacts. So you have the period that's 1918 and 1945, and you had a number of events that occurred, and I listed the major ones that certainly transformed humanity at that time period. You have the First and Second World War, the Spanish flu, the founding of the United Nations, for example. But you also have two items at the bottom there that I'm going to hone in on later on the program, and that is the time cycles of the new group of world servers and the discovery and the journey of Pluto. So I'm going to speak to those and how they've impacted world events through the first ray. And here are some of the impacts that are impacting humanity today, just to name a few of those. You have some similarities as well as differences between the two time periods. For example, you have COVID-19, and of course, during the prior, you had the Spanish flu. You have today the Great Recession of 07, 09, and current economic stabilities, where back in the earlier time period, you had the Great Depression. And another difference that I like to speak to is the third from the last bullet down, the Me Too movements, where my thought is that the events of the first time period were certainly destructive on the physical plane, specifically the world wars, for example, where it appears that for this time period, that the impacts are more focused on the astral and the mental planes. And I think the Me Too movements speak to the shattering of old ways of thinking with those movements. And again, I have highlighted at the bottom there the time cycles of the new group of world servers and Pluto declassified. So the first item I want to talk to is the time cycles of the new group of world servers. And for those of you who are not familiar with this article and its charts, it is found on the Lucis Trust website. And what this article and these charts speak to, and they define, is the rhythmic pattern of a new group of world servers over 3 cycle periods. And that is crisis consolidation, tension expansion, and an emergence impact. And when you look at the chart, and I'll explain it briefly for those of you who are not familiar with it, you have 3 cycles of a 3-year cycle, a 9-year cycle, and a 27-year cycle. And you can see that the crisis consolidation, the tension expansion, and emergence impact are spread over a 3, 9, and 27-year cycle. So you can see for the 3-year cycle, and I color coded it to make it easier to view. You can see for the period, for example, 1933 to 34, you have crisis consolidation, 34-35 tension expansion, and 35-36 emergence impact. And you can see over the 9-year cycle how you have 3 years of the crisis consolidation, tension expansion, and emergence impact, and then a 20-year cycle of 3 periods of 9 years of crisis consolidation, tension expansion, and emergence impact. And when you look at this chart, you can see at the bottom there, I have 2 years that are highlighted. And again, what I'm trying to do is tie the work of the new group of world servers, the subjective causal impacts that the work of the group does, such as triangles, how that's impacting world events. So with 1941 and 42, at the midst of the World War, you can see there is a cycle there for the 3-year emergence impact on public consciousness. And again, at the 9-year cycle and the 27-year cycle in the middle of the crisis consolidation period. And I also have 1944-45 highlighted as well, and I'll speak to why that's important. So as you go down through the chart, and this chart is about 3 or 4 pages, you can see emphasized in 2022-23, you have the cycles there, and the cycles for the time period that's going to begin next year is the same as the 1942 time period, the same exact cycle for the 3, 9, and 27-year cycle. And the same holds true for the 25-26 cycle, which is also highlighted, and that aligns with the 1945 cycle. And why is that important? That's important because in the article itself, and I'll read a passage from that article, the first bullet there, it says in 1942, quote, that the inner spiritual victory was gained and the ultimate result assured, and that this outcome, quote, resulted in the great year of 1945, when it was possible for the Christ to make his great pronouncement of return and for the issuance of the great invocation. So if you look back at the chart, well, let's go back there, you can see at this period, it was known that the forces of light were going to win that war. And that was going to lay the groundwork in 1944-45 for the pronouncement of the great invocation, that great gift to humanity that was provided to the Christ. And then you can see how that aligns with the current period. And then just to add to that, interestingly enough, the year 2025, again, has the same exact cyclical terms as 1945, with an important difference. And that difference being that in 2025 is when the spiritual enclave meets to determine the direction of humanity for the next 100 years. So again, just tying in the work of the new group of world servers, again, that very subjective causal effort, and perhaps how that's impacting humanity through these 2 periods. Secondly, I would like to talk about Pluto. And interestingly, I found a correlation with Pluto as well as it relates to these 2 time periods. First, Pluto, for those of you who are not aware, is a non-sacred planet that expresses the first ray energies. And these first ray energies have been known to exist by esotericists for millennia. So it was known that those energies existed, and perhaps with the discovery and the announcement of Pluto brought into manifestation of those energies as we saw during the earlier time period and perhaps today. So it is a first ray planet, non-sacred, and it works powerfully through Scorpio and Pisces. And back during that time period, the late 1800s and the early 1900s, it was known at that time period, even though the instrumentation of that time was much more primitive than today, that there was something out there that had a gravitational pull and was impacting the outer planets at that time. So astronomers knew there was something there, and what they called the hunt for Planet X. So as a result of that, an astronomer out in Arizona did discover and actually announced Pluto, the discovery of Pluto on March 13th, 1930. And that was 1 day prior to the full moon in Pisces. And incidentally, it was declassified on August 24th, 2006, 1 day after the new moon in Virgo, the opposite sign of Pisces. So, and what makes that important is you have a pattern there developed as it relates to the announcement and the declaration. Yes, can everyone still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So what that resulted in is a pattern being developed as it relates to these two time periods. Now I'd like to speak to discovery of a new planet, number 9. There has been a number of articles over the last month or so about the high probability of a planet that exists beyond Neptune, and that is based on some data that was presented in an article by astronomers at the California Institute of Technology. And what is stated in that article is that based on their data and their analysis, that there is a gravitational pull, and that there's a 0.4% chance that is a fluke, which is respect to the gravitational pull. So if you do the math, that means there's a 99.6% chance that a planet exists. Now, granted, they haven't located the planet yet, and they had not made a formal discovery, but there's that gravitational pull that they also recognized back when Pluto was discovered. And they are stating that it's elongated, the orbit is elongated, which is similar to Pluto, that it's probably a gaseous planet, and that it's about 6 times the mass of Earth. And incidentally, the astronomer that was instrumental in the declassification of Pluto is the lead astronomer in the hunt for Planet 9. So is Planet 9 and Planet X the same? I would say so, because they're being impacted by the same first ray energies. And Pluto is just a physical manifestation of the energy, just as Planet 9 or Planet X is. And then another thought that perhaps may be occurring, since they've been looking for this planet for decades and they have not been able to find it, a thought came to my mind that perhaps it's emerging from the etheric realms. But that's just my thought on that. So what I'd like to do is explain this chart, and please forgive me, I hope everyone can read my handwriting. And this is my lack of experience in graphics in PowerPoint. So what I did is I hand drew it and scanned it and placed it into the PowerPoint. So if you just let me walk through it, it'll make a whole lot of sense to everyone. So what you have here is you have 3 points of the triangle. You have point 1, point 2, and point 3. And each point can be referred to as a point of tension or a pause within energy, and one can think of the in-breath and the out-breath of the new and full moon meditations, where you have the full moon pause is after the in-breath, and a new moon pause is after, the full moon pause is after an in-breath, and the new moon pause is after an out-breath. Thank you. So during this pause, Pluto discovery announced March 13th, 1930, which just happened to be during the full moon cycle of Pisces. So again, you have that pause of the full moon before an outbreath of activity. So the arrow shows the activity, the outbreath, and the impact, perhaps during that first time period of 1918 to 1945. And subsequent to the outbreath, if you can visualize the breath, there's a pause that's in the in-breath. So that's also a point of tension, a pause. And it was during the new moon of Virgo, which is the pause after the outbreath, that Pluto was declassified. And that was on August 24th, 2006, in the sign of Virgo. So if you just follow the breath, you can see perhaps we're in a period now of in-breath. And there's certainly a lot of crisis and consolidation going on there. And you can see there's a subsequent pause, which would be a third period of tension. And perhaps, and again, I have question marks there, this is discovery of a new planet and possibly of a full moon. Again, just following that pattern there. And then you can see you have a new outbreath activity. So I hope that makes sense to everyone. Again, I'm just tying in the activity of the new group of world servers, the rhythm of the in-breath and the out-breath and the work, and the discovery, declassification of Pluto, which perhaps is an ending of a destructive aspect of the first ray, not necessarily a non-sacred aspect, but sometimes a destructive aspect is certainly necessary. And perhaps we're moving into a second aspect of the first ray, which is that of synthesis. So that's what we have there. And just to finalize with 2 slides, you can see here's a hypothetical orbit of planet number 9, and you can see it has a very elliptical pattern. And something that came to my mind when looking at this is the orbit is so much different than the other planets. Perhaps this planet was introduced into our solar system, but that's just my thought on that. And then to end, here's an artist rendition of planet number 9. So thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you. That was really interesting. There was so much information. I'm a little slow in taking in all the information. So could
Sure.
you just again present the parallels between the cycles in the discovery of Pluto and the present time? Is this the exact same cycle this year, or what year is it the same?
Well, what I was doing was I recognized patterns between the 2 periods of time. So 1918 and 1945 and today.
Yeah.
And there were similarities between the 2. And actually there's a few programs and a number of articles where other people have recognized similarities. So as I pondered on that, and I'll just scroll back so you can follow me. So as I pondered on some similarities, I was also aware of the article by Foster Bailey, The Time Cycles of a New Group of World Servers.
Yeah.
And in looking at that chart, I just came across the exact pattern of the work of the New Group of World Servers through those 3 cycles: the crisis, consolidation, tension, expansion, and emergence impact. And I could see here, like, for example, 41 and 42, you can see here's an emergence impact, another emergence impact, and then a crisis consolidation.
Yeah.
And then 44 to 45. And this is the same exact one as 22, 23, and 25 to 26.
Right. But not
With
necessarily
the
related.
being in 1942.
Yeah. But not necessarily related to 1930 when Pluto was discovered. It was
Well,
slightly...
with the reason I brought in Pluto, because what I was saying is, I said, that's interesting. Is there anything else out there? Is there some relation, other relations? And that's where Pluto came in. And that may relate to the impacts of Shambhala that happened late in the 1880s, I believe. And then you had 2 impacts in 1975 and 2000. And I thought that perhaps the introduction of Pluto, that first ray energy, impacted the time periods. That was 1918 and 1945.
Yeah.
Now, it was announced in 1930, but something I didn't add here, I didn't want to add too much to the PowerPoint, is that they actually have some slides back on 1916 and 1917 where perhaps it was already discovered, but they didn't recognize it.
Yeah.
So there was a hunt for this planet through the earlier part of last century, and they just happened to come across Pluto. An astronomer came across Pluto, but as the time went on with Pluto, they saw that its luminosity wasn't as high as they thought, and then they recognized there were other actually planets larger than it, and that's what resulted in its declassification in 2006. They actually found some dwarf planets that were larger than it.
Yeah.
But that didn't stop the look for a heavier planet, which, So it's just over that time period where the discovery of Pluto. And then you have incidentally, an article come out in August that they have a 99.6% chance that there's another planet out there based on gravitational pull.
And are they thinking that this, I guess they don't know, but this could be discovered relatively soon, it sounds
Well,
like.
and in reading the abstract, actually it's an abstract, and I'm showing this slide here where he says the orbit of planet 9, and here's the authors here. If you search that, you will find that abstract. It's very technical,
Yeah.
but there are some areas that can be understood by the layman, such as myself, and they're pretty confident it's out there based on the gravitational pull, and they're physically looking for a planet. They haven't found it yet, but I found the abstract to be very compelling.
Well, it dovetails with what the Tibetan says, because he gives a lineup for the energies that are inflowing into humanity during the Leo full moon, the Sirius festival. And during that, he says the first planet that he lists is an undiscovered trans-Neptunian planet. So he's confirming that it exists. You know,
Yeah.
maybe it's not the same one, but it sounds quite possible that it is. And so it's interesting that we had a double Leo full moon this year, and this is coming to light right on the day of that that second Leo full moon, which I believe was August 22nd.
Yes, it was. And yeah, that's interesting because and I'll go back to another comparison here. You have Pisces, Virgo, which is the opposite. So if you can visualize the natal chart there, the opposite, and then perhaps this is a Leo. So you have perhaps a Pisces, Virgo, Leo triangle, which I know you presented a few meetings back there.
Yeah, it makes sense that it could have been stimulated very much by that alignment then. So
and I would also say that the astronomers that are working on this, I suspect that they're probably getting impact from the abstract mind, the higher mental plane.
Yeah.
And that they recognize that that's out there, and they could be those energies that are compelling them forward.
Well, let's open it up to the audience now. There's quite a few comments in the chat box. Sure.
Just want to make sure I get to you. All right. Let's see. Hold on one second here. Having a problem opening this up. Just bear with me a second here.
You could just leave it. I mean, it's fine the way it is. If you just click on chat.
I can't see the.
Can you click on chat?
There you go. I can read the chats. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if anybody would like to share an audible comment, you can click on the reactions icon and we'll unmute your microphone. But in the meantime, you can see the chat box, so you might want to read some of those comments.
Yeah, let me see here. Let me just go down. So the first question, is there an esoteric significance in the declassification of Pluto? My thought on that, to a dwarf planet, or is it erroneous? My thought on that is that it appears to me that perhaps it could end a phase of the first ray energies, that of the destructive phase. There are two aspects of the first ray. That's destruction aspect and the synthesis aspect. So the thought that came to my mind is perhaps it's an ending of that destructive phase and we're moving into a synthetic phase.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, but that would also dovetail with thoughts that I've had, and people have posted here in the chat box that it would be related to the ascendancy of the sacred planet, which is Vulcan, along the
Yes.
first ray line. So yeah, that's an interesting point, Michelle.
Yeah, because the planet Pluto itself is just a physical aspect of the first ray. So the fact that it was declassified from an esoteric perspective is insignificant. It's about patterns that we're trying to connect here.
And it's interesting.
The effects of causal patterns.
Yeah. And it's interesting that it's going through this long transit of Pluto in Capricorn, the most materialistic sign on the one hand, but also a sign that really strengthens the new group of world server and the disciples of the world. So yeah, it could be related to that very much.
Yeah. So again, yeah, just focus on Pluto in the first ray. Thank you, Michelle. Okay. Just reading through here. Can you elaborate on the Me Too movement and the shattering of emotional and mental crystallizations to make a way for the new? Well, I would just say that the Me Too movements, again, very much on the mental and perhaps streaming down in the astral realms, is you have the ideals coming from the higher mental, in my view, and they're being recognized by groups of people and of behavior that needs to change. So you're moving from a behavior of exclusiveness to inclusiveness, where you treat people with respect, we're all part of one unity, and you're seeing individuals perhaps through a first ray, the first ray inclination, bringing that to everyone's attention. You have that perseverance and purpose of saying things need to change. You have Black Lives Matter movement, for example. You have a collective there. They're saying, okay, we're not going to be treated this way anymore. Things need to change. We're part of humanity, and we need to be treated as such. So that could be a good example of that. And if you wanted to add anything, Kathy.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Let's see. Might the new planet be Vulcan? It is a sacred planet associated with the first ray. The Roman god Vulcan was a synthesizer. He was. As I understand, there's two first ray planets, though, correct?
Yeah, Vulcan and Pluto.
So perhaps, let me ask this question to Kathy, if you don't mind.
No.
Could there be a possibility of two sacred first ray planets, Vulcan and a higher aspect of the first ray?
Well, it's not mentioned by the Tibetan, so I don't really see that at this time, but it begs the question of what would this trans-Neptunian planet, I wonder, what ray line that would be on. We don't have a sacred fifth ray planet, and we don't have a sacred seventh ray. I mean, we don't have a non-sacred fifth ray planet, nor do we have a non-sacred seventh ray planet. So those spaces are open, up for grabs.
Okay.
But I don't know. It looks quite sacred there in the picture, but who knows?
Yeah. Again, just thoughts for pondering.
Yeah.
Sure.
But Vulcan is definitely definitely, but it's highly speculated to be an intra-mercurial planet, between Mercury and the sun, within the orb of the sun. So it's but it used to be considered etheric, but it's been pretty well, I don't know if it's exactly stated by the Tibetan, but I believe it is. It isn't considered etheric. It is considered to be a physical planet. So, but I think, people have been saying that over the last decades, there's been a lot of hope for the development of fusion, the fusion of the atom. And so I think as we're moving really close towards that point, we hope, that should coincide, I would say, with the discovery of a new planets, because as we know, there's the events that are occurring in the outer world oftentimes are very reflective of the nature of the planet, and Vulcan is the planet of synthesis.
Yeah.
So,
I lost you there for a second, Kathy, but that's okay.
oh, that's okay. Yeah. All right.
Okay. So another question, if planet number 9 is gaseous planet, what does that mean as far as its ratio to its solidity? Well, that question, I don't know how to answer. That I don't know.
Well, when you were speaking of it, you said that many of the other outer planets are also gaseous, so it doesn't seem like that's any kind of detrimental thing for a planet.
No, not at all.
So it's like a lot of the other outer planets.
Well, Pluto is, of course, solid, and this planet is expected to is stated to be gaseous. So maybe it's speaking to moving away more of a refinement of the first ray aspect.
Yeah.
That thought came to me, or perhaps some other aspect. Maybe you said the 5th ray and the 7th ray don't have a.
They don't have
Okay.
non-sacred rulers.
I see it as a refinement going from a hard solid to a gaseous. That's my thoughts on that. That could symbolize that. Let's see. Great. Okay. Maybe we can see on 2020 the planet 11. I know we were talking about planet number 9. Are we including the sun and the moon as veiling planets in that?
Maybe they're talking about the order in which the planets go. Pluto.
Okay.
Pluto being the 10th, and then another, perhaps a trans-Plutonian planet. Although there have been a number of planets already discovered trans-Plutonian.
Okay. Although Pluto, is not a sacred planet, DK still listed as the esoteric ruler of Pisces. This is the only non-sacred planet listed in. This is,
He also gives Pluto as the esoteric ruler in Scorpio. So,
yes.
Yeah, even though it's quote unquote non-sacred, it's very powerful, obviously.
Yeah.
Very powerful planet.
And the significance of that is in the one, pull it up here, in that Pluto's discovery was announced in Pisces.
Yeah.
Okay. Just going down here.
Well, just maybe a couple more comments, and then we'll close
Sure.
the day, and I'll send these to you for you to read.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's my understanding that if you trace the elliptical orbit of planet X, there's a small black hole the size of a grapefruit in our galaxy. And interestingly enough, in that article by the astronomers from Caltech, they're indicating that there is no black hole. They do speak about that in that abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just answer one more. And yeah, I agree with Matthew. The greatest long-term crises of our present time are the interrelated crises of climate change, ecological destruction, excuse me, and the biodiversity loss, which will lead to a tragic end of all humanity. I do agree with that. And some of that destruction is certainly first ray. You see the fires, the forest fires, that are occurring, which I think has a first ray element, and the extinction of species, certainly that first ray aspect. I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Michelle.
you.
for sharing your thoughts with us, and it was really interesting. And so why don't we just take a brief moment of silence to visualize the planet surrounded by a network of triangles. And we'll sound the Om. Om. Thank you, everyone.